Well, hey there, guys. I'm Axel the Beast, and this is the Curiosity Shop, ZeldaEngine.net video mailbag where I answer your Zelda questions. Our first question comes from Jonatron. What new Zelda characters do you want to see in Smash Bros. 4? Well, this is almost off topic. It's not quite. Well played. I think that for me, I don't really want to see any new ones. I think Ganondorf, Link, and Zelda/Sheikah is actually a pretty good mix. Like a pretty good assortment from Zelda. I don't think we need to see the game flooded by Zelda characters, but for me, I think I'd like to see, this is what I want to see in Smash Bros. In general, but more characters that are the same, moveset, but aren't their own, like, they're built like alternate skins or alternate models, but in a bigger way than just the alternate colors. They really have their own vocal sound effects and everything. So I think that putting in Demise would be very interesting, and Garahim, and I think that replacing Zelda and Sheikah with Zelda and Impa from Skyward Sword could be very interesting. Stuff like that. I don't think the current roster of actual Zelda characters needs to change. Tell me your guys in the comments, though. Pathway Star asks, I really like most of the main antagonists in the Zelda games. What do you think of them bringing back some of them as a villain group that, with their combined powers, would be even more powerful than before? I don't know. Like, this is a lot in line with a lot of ideas where people think about, like, what if you brought this element back, or did this whole big deal, or combined these things together from previous Zelda games and made a new game, blah, 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 blah. But it's basically just a lot of fan service ideas. It's just putting these into the game just because they're cool, they'd go cool together, not necessarily because they really... I don't know. I think if you do something like that, where you take a lot of cool elements and you try to put them together, it doesn't really add that much. It just turns into a big, like, exploitation thing. You're just trying to take these elements, these characters, these villains, whatever, and put them into a game together and just hinge it all on that factor alone, that would be cool. And I don't think that's really that good for a game, and I think that was one of the things that annoyed me about, say, Metroid Other M, the fact that, oh, hey, there's some cool bosses from previous Metroid games, but then there's just so many of them, it's just like, the game loses its own identity in the process. It doesn't feel as much like its own experience, and I think that the Zelda series in particular, where each game is kind of unique, should avoid that. Malik Edwards asks, what kind of role do you want Link to play at the beginning of Zelda Wii U? I'm kind of getting bored with the Village Boy idea. What do you think? Well, I don't know about that. I think, like, the Village Boy concept is kind of a classic thing in the Zelda series, and in fantasy in general, the humble beginnings to, glorious, epic adventure. It's hero's journey stuff. However, I think you can do similar stories with other concepts, and I do actually like the idea of seeing Link come from a lot of different backgrounds and having very different characters for Link from game to game. So yeah, I think I would be interested in seeing some new stuff, at least for a little bit. I mean, they can go back to the village thing later, so yeah, I think I agree on this one. Jimmy F27 asks, would you like to see an older Link than we've ever seen before in Zelda Wii U? Maybe around 25 years of age? Well, that wouldn't be so much older than what we've seen, but yeah, well, I don't know. Because it's actually more identifiable to the majority of fans of the series to have a pretty young hero, and, let's face it, young guys are kind of appealing to, the ladies. So, chances are that they would stick with someone pretty young, and I think that since the majority of the series fans are going to be younger people, especially kids, it would make sense to keep it that way, but seeing an older one every so often would be kind of interesting. It falls in line with the experimenting with this character once again. I just don't know if they're going to do it like that. I don't know if they're really going to age him up that much. Demise is behind you. Asks, throughout the Zelda series, Ganondorf has been shown as a personification of pure evil, with the only exception being the Wind Waker. Since then, the creators seem to be making Ganondorf more and more inhumane in his brutality and status as a demon thief, even when he is not in his Ganon form, culminating with the implication that he is the incarnation of Demise. When Ganondorf returns in a future Zelda game, how would you like the creators to handle his character? Do you prefer him to stay as a purely evil villain, or would you like the game to dwell more into his motivations and the secrets about his upbringing, as Ocarina of Time and the Wind Waker first referred to? Perhaps even explain his connection to Demise? Maybe explaining the connection a little more might be interesting, although it's not totally necessary. I don't really have a specific thing I think that they should do with him. I just think that with Ganondorf, they do it differently game to game. I think it's coincidental that they tried to show him as more inhumane, as you described. As for covering his origins, I guess that they could do the Demise thing, but I think referring to, like, his human backstory, they don't really need to. They did that with the Wind Waker. Granted, there is a different Ganondorf, a completely different dude, in the Four Swords Adventures on child timeline, so they could do something different there. And I also had the idea that they were gonna be doing a Ganon's actually completely dead on the adult timeline. You don't even see him much anymore. He's human on the child timeline, and he's a demon on the downfall cop-out timeline. So maybe they will do different things, but maybe restricted to each timeline. I don't know. Hylian Link asks, Nintendo hasn't really touched on the Zelda game for the 3DS yet. Do you think that the new Zelda game will be a follow-up to Phantom Hourglass or Spirit Tracks, or do you think it'll be a new entry in the Zelda series? A whole new entry in the Zelda series. You know, I think that the chances of us seeing more of the whole Phantom Hourglass Spirit Tracks thing is kind of past now. I thought that they were going to do another one, maybe to complete the sky, you know, like complete the trio, you know, land, sea, and sky, but they kind of did that with Skyward Sword, so I don't think that's going to happen. And that was the main reason I thought they might. And now that they've moved on to a different system, and there's been the release of Ocarina of Time 3D, kind of setting a completely different precedent for what the 3DS Zelda might look like. I don't really expect to see this the toon style of the DS games or the touchscreen controls much again. They might do something that's a follow-up on in the same world. I don't really know, but I think that we're gonna look at something that see something that looks a lot different than those games. Yo Person Guy, asks, do you think the creators of Zelda will ever explain in more detail who exactly the Sheikah are? Maybe possibly a game solely to develop the race more? I don't think we're going to get a game just about them. I really don't see that happening. I don't think there exists anything quite like that for any specific aspect of the series, or specific race, really. As for them getting more explanation, I don't really think so. Unfortunately, it seems like Skyward Sword and Hyrule Historia have kind of settled it. They are a chosen race of the goddess Hylia, designed to serve the goddess, and their servitude of the goddess extended to the royal family with the goddess's blood. So, I don't know, it just doesn't seem like there's... What more are you going to do with that? They might have a game where it focuses more on them, but they're supposed to be secretive, they're supposed to be elusive. I just don't see them adding more on to what they have. It just seems like it's kind of a closed story, even though, you know, it wasn't a very satisfying explanation. 83 on Skates asks, why does Zelda have the Triforce of Wisdom if she doesn't show any significant wisdom throughout the series? And, you know, some people have asked this, and yeah, arguably Zelda doesn't really act terribly smart, and even makes blatant mistakes in certain games, but I don't think that really means that she doesn't deserve the Triforce. I mean, obviously they gotta give it to major characters. Really, you just gotta think she has wisdom that she doesn't display? I don't know. Or more just the fact that just because she is wise doesn't mean she is going to be put in situations throughout the games where she's going to end up showing like some crazy intelligence, or even that she's infallible and she can't make mistakes. So I just think it's kind of like the wisdom aspect of her character is just kind of a non-factor for most of Zelda stories, although they could touch on it more, I guess. Somebody you don't know, asks, do you think that Ganon in A Link to the Past is too easy? No. Alexander Jensen asks, why did the Gerudos worship or serve Ganondorf? He was their rightful king, according to Ocarina of Time, and so they served him as a result of that. But then at some point after he turned evil, he started brainwashing them, possibly because they stopped liking how evil he was, like Nabaru did. At any rate, he started brainwashing them, and that's why. After Ocarina of Time, there really is no record of them actually serving or following him in any way, so. Bob Jones asks, what's your theory on the scene of Majora's Mask with all the kids playing around the tree and the kid wearing Majora's Mask by himself? Really, I think that this scene was just supposed to indicate, like, just in a very abstract way, kind of like represent the Skull Kid's, like, you know, like anxieties and hang-ups regarding friendship and his friends, because it directly relates to his story of being left by his friends, finding new friends, looking for friends, and also the themes of Link. He's searching for his friend, Navi. I don't think it really relates to Majora itself. I think it's just kind of like a spirit world thing that's supposed to be symbolic of those characters, Link and the Skull Kid, and just other characters in the game. The German Legend asks, if I got Hyrule Historia a few days ago, and there's a part that says that the three deities from the Wind Waker, Valoo, the Deku Tree, and Jabun, are descended from Volvagia, the first Deku Tree, and Lord Jabu Jabu. This makes sense for the Deku Tree and Jabu Jabu, but Volvagia was a Goron-eating monster prior to Ocarina of Time that was killed by Darunia's ancestor and then revived by Ganondorf. Could it be that sometime before Ocarina of Time, the Gorons really worshipped for Volvagia and even sacrificed themselves to feed her? Yeah, I don't think so. I don't think there's a lot of reason to think that. This seems like kind of a leap to make. I think it's simply that Volvagia was either of a species that was not all evil, since there's precedent for good dragons both before in Skyward Sword and after in Wind Waker, or simply that as her species bred, Volvagia's descendants just weren't as bloodthirsty or whatever. Whichever way you want to slice it, I don't think the fact that Valoo wasn't evil means that Volvagia wasn't always evil either. Alright, last question. Pine Plays Games asks, I was wondering if you liked the stealth part of Skyward Sword at the volcano, and if Zelda should have other little parts like it. Yes, and, Alright guys, that's it for this time. Be sure to send your questions to the contact information in the description, and I'll see you guys later. Well, hey there guys, I'm Axel the Beast.